Your phone just buzzed and you immediately felt a tiny surge of excitement, followed by an overwhelming urge to check it right now. That reaction wasn't an accident. It was engineered by teams of psychologists working for social media companies to hijack your brain's reward system and keep you addicted to their platforms. What I'm about to reveal are 6 specific psychological manipulation techniques that social media platforms use to control your behavior, drain your attention, and literally rewire your brain for addiction. And trick number 5 is so insidious that even knowing about it won't fully protect you from its effects. But here's what's really terrifying. These aren't accidental side effects of social media design. These are intentional manipulation strategies developed by behavioral psychologists and neuroscientists who understand exactly how to exploit your brain's vulnerabilities for profit. The attention economy is worth over $300 billion annually, and every second of your focus is being monetized by companies that know more about your psychological weaknesses than you do. So let's expose these manipulation tactics so you can recognize when your brain is being hacked and take back control of your own mind. Trick number 1. Variable ratio reinforcement schedules that trigger gambling addiction pathways. This is the foundation of social media addiction, and it's the same psychological mechanism that makes slot machines so addictive. Social media platforms deliberately make rewards unpredictable to maximize the addictive potential of their notifications and content delivery. Here's how it works in your brain. When you pull down to refresh your feed or check for notifications, you never know what you're going to find. Sometimes it's something exciting, like a message from a friend or a post that makes you laugh. Sometimes it's boring content that you scroll past immediately. This unpredictability triggers massive dopamine release in anticipation of potential rewards. The psychological term for this is variable ratio reinforcement, and research shows it's the most addictive form of behavioral conditioning possible. Your brain becomes obsessed with the possibility of the next reward, even when the actual rewards are relatively small and infrequent. But here's what makes this particularly sinister. Social media companies employ teams of behavioral economists and addiction specialists who fine-tune these reward schedules for maximum engagement. They literally study gambling addiction research and apply those findings to their notification systems and content algorithms. The notifications are designed to be just frequent enough to keep you checking, but not so frequent that you become desensitized to them. The quality of content in your feed is algorithmically varied to include occasional, highly engaging posts mixed with mediocre content, creating the perfect conditions for addictive behavior. Your brain doesn't distinguish between social media rewards and other types of rewards. The same neural pathways that get activated by food, sex, and drugs are being triggered every time you get a like, comment, or notification. You're essentially carrying a slot machine in your pocket that's designed to be more addictive than actual gambling. Trick number 2, fear of missing out amplification through social comparison algorithms. This is where social media platforms weaponize your basic human need for social connection and turn it against you. The algorithms are specifically designed to show you content that makes you feel like everyone else is having better experiences than you are. The platforms deliberately amplify content that triggers social comparison because it keeps you engaged longer. When you see friends posting about vacations, achievements, or social events you weren't invited to, your brain experiences genuine social pain that's neurologically similar to physical pain. But here's the manipulative part. The algorithm doesn't show you a representative sample of people's lives. It prioritizes content that generates strong emotional reactions, which means you're seeing a curated collection of everyone's best moments while living through your own unfiltered reality. The psychological principle being exploited is called compare and despair. Your brain is wired to make social comparisons for evolutionary survival reasons, but social media has hijacked this natural tendency and turned it into a source of chronic dissatisfaction and anxiety. The platforms use sophisticated data analysis to identify exactly what types of content make you feel inadequate or left out. Then they show you more of that content because it drives engagement. They know that negative emotions like envy, loneliness, and inadequacy actually keep people scrolling longer than positive emotions do. What's particularly insidious is that the algorithms learn your specific insecurities and triggers. If you spend more time looking at fitness content because you're insecure about your body, the algorithm will show you more impossibly perfect fitness influencers. If you're sensitive about your career progress, you'll see more posts about other people's professional achievements. Trick number 3, intermittent reinforcement of social validation that mimics addictive drug patterns. This is how social media platforms turn your natural desire for social connection into a neurochemical dependency. The likes, comments, and shares you receive trigger the same brain chemistry as addictive drugs. But the platforms deliberately make this social validation unpredictable to maximize its addictive potential. When you post content, you never know how much engagement you'll receive or when it will arrive. Sometimes a post gets ignored completely. Sometimes it receives steady engagement throughout the day. Occasionally, something goes viral and floods your brain with validation. This unpredictability creates powerful addiction pathways that keep you posting and checking obsessively. The neuroscience behind this is fascinating and terrifying. Studies using brain imaging show that receiving social media notifications activates the same reward circuits as cocaine use. The anticipation of potential social validation triggers dopamine release, creating literal cravings for likes and comments. But here's where it gets really manipulative. The platforms use artificial intelligence to optimize when and how they deliver these social rewards. They might hold back some notifications and deliver them in batches to create bigger dopamine hits. They might show your content to friends at specific times when they're most likely to engage. The algorithms also create false scarcity around social validation. They might show your post to only a small percentage of your followers initially, then expand the reach if it performs well. This creates anxiety about whether your content is good enough and drives you to post more frequently and craft content specifically designed for maximum engagement. The withdrawal symptoms when you don't receive expected social validation are real and measurable. People report anxiety, depression, and obsessive thoughts when their posts don't perform well or when they don't receive their usual amount of social media interaction. Trick number 4, algorithmic echo chambers that exploit confirmation bias for increased engagement. This is how social media platforms turn your natural tendency to seek information that confirms your existing beliefs into a tool for keeping you endlessly engaged and increasingly polarized. The algorithms learn your political views, interests, and biases, then create custom reality bubbles designed to make you feel right about everything you already believe. The psychological principle being exploited is called confirmation bias, your brain's tendency to seek, interpret, and remember information that confirms your pre-existing beliefs while ignoring contradictory evidence. Social media algorithms supercharge this natural bias by creating personalized information environments that rarely challenge your worldview. But here's the manipulative part. These echo chambers aren't just confirming your beliefs, they're gradually radicalizing them. The algorithms prioritize content that generates strong emotional reactions, which means they show you increasingly extreme versions of opinions you already hold. Over time, this pushes your views toward more and more polarized positions. The platforms know that controversial and emotionally charged content keeps people engaged longer than neutral information. They've discovered that anger, outrage, and fear are incredibly effective at driving user engagement, so their algorithms are biased toward showing you content that makes you feel these intense emotions. This creates what researchers call manufactured outrage. You're constantly being shown content designed to make you angry about things you might never have cared about otherwise. The platforms profit from your emotional arousal, regardless of whether that arousal is positive or negative. The echo chamber effect also makes you more susceptible to misinformation, because false information that confirms your biases feels more credible than accurate information that challenges your beliefs. The algorithms can't distinguish between true and false information. They only care about engagement, which means compelling lies often get more promotion than boring truths. Trick number 5. Attention residue manipulation that fragments your ability to focus deeply. This is the most insidious trick because it doesn't just affect you while you're using social media. It permanently changes how your brain processes information and maintains focus. Social media platforms are deliberately designed to fragment your attention span and make deep, sustained thinking nearly impossible. The psychological concept being exploited is called attention residue. When you switch between different tasks or information sources, part of your mental capacity remains stuck on the previous task. Social media platforms maximize this effect by presenting you with rapid-fire content changes that never allow your brain to fully process one piece of information before moving to the next. The average piece of content on social media is designed to be consumed in seconds, not minutes. This trains your brain to expect constant novelty and makes it increasingly difficult to engage with anything that requires sustained attention. You're literally being neurologically rewired for distractibility. But here's what makes this particularly harmful. The attention fragmentation doesn't stop when you close the app. Studies show that people who are heavy social media users have measurably shorter attention spans even when they're not using their devices. The cognitive effects persist for hours after usage ends. The platforms use sophisticated psychological techniques to make their content feel urgent and important, even when it's completely trivial. They create artificial deadlines through stories that disappear, limited time offers, and trending topics that make you feel like you need to consume information immediately or miss out permanently. The notification systems are specifically designed to interrupt whatever you're doing and fragment your focus. Research shows that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus after an interruption, but most people receive notifications far more frequently than that, creating a state of constant partial attention. Trick number 6. Parasocial relationship exploitation that replaces real human connection. This is how social media platforms trick your brain into thinking you have meaningful social connections when you're actually becoming more isolated and lonely. They exploit your natural human need for relationships by creating the illusion of intimacy with strangers while preventing you from developing real connections. The psychological phenomenon being exploited is called parasocial relationships, one-sided emotional connections that people form with media personalities or influencers. Your brain releases the same neurochemicals when you watch someone's content regularly as it does when you interact with actual friends, even though the relationship is completely one-sided. Social media platforms maximize parasocial relationships because they're incredibly profitable. When you feel emotionally connected to influencers and content creators, you're more likely to engage with their sponsored content, buy products they recommend, and spend more time on the platform consuming their content. But here's the devastating trade-off. Time spent in parasocial relationships is time not spent building real relationships. Studies show that people who spend more time consuming social media content report feeling lonelier and more socially isolated, even when they feel connected to the creators they follow. The platforms use sophisticated data analysis to identify which types of content creators you're most likely to form parasocial relationships with. Then they flood your feed with similar personalities. They know that emotional attachment to creators is one of the strongest predictors of long-term platform usage. The algorithmic promotion of parasocial relationships also explains why authenticity and relatability are so heavily rewarded on social media platforms. Content that makes you feel like you're getting to know the real person behind the camera triggers stronger parasocial bonds than obviously produced or promotional content. What makes this particularly harmful is that parasocial relationships provide just enough social satisfaction to reduce your motivation to seek real human connection, but not enough to actually meet your psychological needs for intimacy and belonging. You end up in a state of chronic social hunger that drives you to consume more content while becoming increasingly isolated from actual people. Now here's what you need to understand. Recognizing these manipulation techniques is just the first step toward protecting yourself. These psychological exploits are so sophisticated and so deeply embedded in the design of these platforms that awareness alone isn't enough to completely protect you. The companies employing these techniques have teams of PhD psychologists, behavioral economists, and neuroscientists working full-time to make their platforms more addictive and engaging. They have access to detailed data about your behavior, your vulnerabilities, and your psychological patterns that they use to customize the manipulation specifically for you. But knowledge is still power, and understanding how your brain is being hacked gives you the ability to make more conscious choices about your technology use. Here are some specific strategies for protecting yourself from these psychological manipulations. First, turn off as many notifications as possible. Every notification is an attempt to hijack your attention and fragment your focus. Be extremely selective about which apps are allowed to interrupt you throughout the day. Second, use social media intentionally rather than habitually. Before opening an app, ask yourself what specific goal you have for that session. Are you looking for information, connection, or entertainment? Set a time limit and stick to it. Third, regularly audit your feeds and following lists. Unfollow accounts that consistently make you feel bad about yourself, trigger social comparison, or promote content that doesn't align with your values. Your feed should serve your goals, not the platform's engagement metrics. Fourth, practice attention training through activities that require sustained focus, like reading books, meditation, or deep conversations. Actively rebuild your ability to concentrate deeply on single tasks without distraction. Fifth, prioritize real-world social connections over online relationships. Make time for in-person interactions, phone calls, and activities that don't involve screens. Your brain needs genuine human connection that can't be replaced by parasocial relationships. And finally, remember that these platforms are designed to be addictive. If you find it difficult to control your usage despite your best intentions, that's not a personal failing. It's evidence that the psychological manipulation techniques are working as intended. The goal isn't necessarily to eliminate social media from your life completely, but to use it consciously and strategically, rather than allowing it to use you. When you understand how these platforms are designed to exploit your psychology, you can make more informed decisions about when and how to engage with them. Your attention is literally your most valuable resource in the modern economy. Companies are spending billions of dollars to capture and monetize every second of your focus. Don't let them have it for free. So here's my challenge for you. For the next week, pay attention to how these psychological tricks affect your behavior. Notice when you feel compelled to check your phone, when social comparison makes you feel inadequate, or when you realize you've been scrolling mindlessly for longer than intended. Drop a comment and let me know which of these manipulation techniques you've noticed affecting your own behavior. Have you experienced any of the symptoms I described? What strategies have you tried for regaining control over your technology use? And if you found this information valuable, please share it with someone who might benefit from understanding how their attention is being manipulated. The more people who understand these techniques, the less effective they become. Subscribe if you want more content about protecting your mental health and cognitive autonomy in the digital age. Your brain is worth protecting, and your attention is worth more than what these companies are paying you for it. Remember, the companies using these psychological manipulation techniques aren't evil, but they are optimizing for their profits rather than your well-being. Understanding their methods is the first step toward taking back control of your own mind. What psychological manipulation technique surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments.